He's a fantastic scholar, and we hope to have him come to UC again. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
My name is Joseph Wong, and I am the director of the Asian Institute here at the University of Toronto. I'm also a professor of political science, and it's with great pleasure that I welcome all of you to the media conference for the Asian Foodprints Conference, which we'll be hosting in 2 weeks' time. So on behalf of the Asian Institute and the University of Toronto more generally, I welcome you to this preamble event. Let me just make a few introductory remarks before I turn things over to those who are the experts. The food conference, Asian Foodprints, this is the second year that we're doing this conference. You'll recall last year in the inaugural Asian Foodprints Conference, the theme and the focus was on Hong Kong and Chinese cuisine. It was met with tremendous critical acclaim and also enthusiasm, understandably, from the community and from the university more generally. And since then we have had, and this is a very rare thing here at the university, we've had countries, representatives from countries and their communities lined up for the next several years looking to collaborate with the Asian Institute in putting together similar conferences showcasing other countries and other cuisines and other cultures in the region. We are absolutely thrilled that for our second conference, and one that we see to be even bigger and better, is focusing on Japan. And it makes good sense. Everything from more popular accounts on the globalization of sushi to the sort of experiences that we have on a daily basis here in a country like Canada and a city like Toronto. It's quite clear that Japanese cuisine, and Japanese cuisine as an extension of Japanese culture, is truly global. And so as we here at the Asian Institute think about the rise of Asia as not just a regionally bounded phenomenon, but really truly as a global phenomenon, it makes great sense that we are focusing this year on Japan. Of course, Japan needs no introduction to the global stage. Japan has been, I'm a political economist, so the things that I think about and worry about on a daily basis, Japan has been a harbinger and champion of political democracy in the Asia region. It has been and continues to be an economic dynamo in the region, and indeed it has been a real cultural force. In my initial write-ups about this conference, as we began conceptualizing it with the experts around the table, one of the things that struck me was how Japan has, at least in the post-war period, really sat on the cusp of both East and West. And this is, which puts it in, I think, at least from my perspective, a very unique position, and one that deserves tremendous exploration. My colleague, Professor Lechsteiner from sociology, will discuss the program in further detail. But as I was just saying to her before the beginning of this media conference, I think that the academic component to this conference is even more impressive than last year's. The paper topics are fantastically interesting. They touch on a variety of disciplines. It encourages interdisciplinary dialogue, and it brings in and makes accessible a set of very complex topics to a wider population who no doubt have tremendous interest in this area. So let me just give you a little sense of how the food conference works. One of the things and one of the main missions of the Asian Institute is to make the work that we do here more accessible to the community, to in many ways rid the notion that the university is an ivory tower that sits above or sits atop an inaccessible metaphorical hill, if you will. And in so doing, we've decided on some new formats for some of our conferences, and that is really to engage and bring in the experiential side of what it is that we study, while at the same time organizing an academic-like conference around that experiential side. So whether it be in film, or in this case, in the area of food and cuisine, it really is a bringing together, if you will, of a food and cuisine festival feel of sorts, while at the same time wrapping around it an academic-like conference. The university, of course, is very well experienced in putting on conferences. The Asian Institute puts on about 120 academic events per year, including 8 to 10 international conferences. We know how to put together conferences, but we wanted to bring in the experiential side. I say that also as a nod to the extraordinary collaboration and cooperation that has gone into this conference. This is a conference that really marries and brings together the university and the community in innovative ways. And without the support of not only the academic units on campus here, but equally important, the support, for instance, of the Japanese consulate here, the Japan Foundation in Toronto, and the visionary leadership demonstrated by their leaders, this conference could not have been put together. So not only, I think, is this an extraordinarily substantive conference, but it's also, I think, a harbinger of things to come in terms of how the university relates to the community, indeed how the community relates to the university. So those are just a few introductory remarks to give us some of the broader context about this conference, and now it's with pleasure for me to turn your attention to Mr. Masayuki Suzuki, who is the director of the Japan Foundation here in Toronto, who has been, I should also add, an extraordinary supporter of ours. It was his instrumental leadership that allowed us, for instance, last year to put together an international film conference on Sabu, to celebrate a Japanese director, and I'm thrilled that we've been able to work together again in putting together this food conference. So, Mr. Suzuki.
Thank you very much, Professor Wong. On behalf of the Japan Foundation Toronto, I'd like to express our thanks for you to come today during the cold weather. And it is my great pleasure to be able to participate in this interesting and very stimulating project. As a cultural organization with a mandate of promoting cultural exchange and mutual understanding between Japan and other countries, including Canada, we believe that this symposium is very important. Food is a very good tool to more deeply understand society and its culture. I have been in Canada for about 3 years, and my interest in food culture, mainly as a consumer, has helped me to understand Canadian society a little better and deeper. In the same way, one of the keys to understand the culture in Japan is learning about its food and food culture. We hope that through this ambitious project, we can provide a new and a little bit different perspectives on Japanese food culture and its society. I'm personally very much looking forward to hearing the speakers from very wide range, such as scholars, journalists, and practitioners, and at this symposium. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the University of Toronto, Asian Institute, and Mang Center, especially Professor Joseph Wong, Dr. Ito Pen, Dr. Vanina Lesnar, and Eileen Lam. They are a very powerful team, and it is my pleasure to work with them. I'd also like to thank Consul General Mr. Tetsuo Yamashita here, and the staff of the Japanese consulate, including Chef Makimine, who kindly prepared today's very wonderful sweet. And she's very young, as you can see, but she has great experience and knowledge of Japanese food culture, as well as very artistic talent. Anyway, thank you very much for giving this opportunity. Thank you.
Professor Leshner.
So I will indeed review the program, and I'll make some comments following what Professor Wong said before. The rationale behind this conference series was to use food as an avenue to explore cultural, social, political issues, economic issues of a different Asian country. And of course, combine that with the pleasure of food that most of us share. And it was also driven by the desire to combine academic conferences with parts of the community that might have felt disconnected from what they could have perceived to be an ivory tower. So we are combining in the program a very practical side with real food tastings and demonstrations, with a scholarly side, and even within the panels where we have discussions, we're combining academics with food writers, experts on sake, experts on wine, and of course actual practitioners like chefs and people who are in the business of importing food and beverages from Japan. We organized the conference in 3 panels. The panel in the morning is a scholarly panel, an academic panel that combines an interest with food and social identity. So that is, in other words, the more cultural aspect of food. And there we have 3 speakers. Eric Rath, who's from a history department. Michael Ashkenazi, who is a food scholar and a writer of books and articles on Japanese food, and Mark Watson, who's an anthropologist. And their interests are really quite diverse, and so our idea was to explore many very different aspects of food. Professor Rath is an expert on pre-modern food and cuisine in Japan. Michael Ashkenazi talks about the changes of Japanese food in the contemporary world. And Mark Watson is interested in indigenous food, in Ainu food in Tokyo, and he did a lot of field work exploring restaurants that serve that food and that serve as a community to Ainu people in Tokyo. And so we hope to further discussion of different aspects of food there, and aspects that combine both the tradition with the evolution of cuisine and the local and the global that are in constant tension or interactions. Then after that, we have a food demonstration with Chef Makimine and a lunch that's hosted by the Consul General. And then we will have a panel that's all of practitioners. And the idea is to have actual practitioners talk about their experiences with food and the culture of food, and again, the tensions of the local and the traditional aspect of food with changes. So Chef Hiro of the famous restaurant Hiro Sushi here in Toronto will talk about the difference of making sushi and consuming sushi both in Japan and in Canada, and his experience with training in Japan and working there and working here. Then we have a freelance writer from Japan, Miss Fujita, who will talk about mostly food in Japan, where she's based. And finally, we have Mr. Shotaro Ozawa, who imports, who's the sales and marketing manager of Ozawa Canada. And he will talk about sake, not so much the business part, because that's the interest in panel 3 later in the afternoon, but more the history of sake and the production of sake and the consumption of sake and the culture around sake. So it's going to be a bit of an introduction to sake, which will also be very nice because later in the evening we'll have a sake tasting for the dinner. So people will be some of those who will be present in the conference and don't know very much about sake will be better informed to enjoy the sake, as it will serve later. So lastly, the third panel in the afternoon, it's on food, politics, and the economy. So we have three very different experts on food. Professor James Farrer, who's at Sophia University, who's a sociologist, is studying entrepreneurs. He's studying both entrepreneurs in China and Japan, but in this conference he'll focus on those in Japan, entrepreneurs who are very much connected to a very global community and who are in the business of opening restaurants, running restaurants, or making food. And then we have Professor Sean Tanaka here at the University of Toronto, who's in geography, who studies the I'm lacking the term here. Who's studying not the application, but the transformations of Japanese food here in Toronto, and what has remained traditional, what has changed, and the communities that revolved around those restaurants. Finally, Sasha Isenberg is a well-renowned journalist who wrote a book that became quite popular, The Sushi Economy, discussing issues of globalization through sushi, through the production consumption of fish and sushi in particular. So again, just as in the morning, the focus was on cultural aspects of food. In the afternoon, it's more on political and economic aspects, and most of them are going to surely touch on issues of globalization. So then after that, there's going to be a reception hosted by both Chef Hiro Yoshida and Chef Kimura, and a dinner following that prepared by those two chefs too. And as I said before, there's going to be a sake tasting during the dinner, and there's going to be also a sommelier, Drew Innes, who's going to prepare wine pairings with the food for dinner and discuss how to pair wines with food. So that ends what will be the most pleasurable part to some people, but that ends our program.
Thank you. Are there any questions or any areas that you would
So
like
that is
further
going to be March 5th.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I add one more question? One of the participants to the second panel, Ms. Chieko Fujita, whom the Japan Foundation is inviting from Japan, is going to talk about the sake boom in Japan and after that sake boom to the current situation. And she's also having a kind of, on a separate occasion in the Japan Foundation event hall. On the next day, she's going to talk about the sake culture separately under the same umbrella of the footprints. Just an additional information.
So when would that be?
It's 6th of March. March the 6th in the evening.
Saturday.
In the evening. Details I will later inform you.
Please, any other questions or comments?
How many brands of sake are sold at the LCBO?
I made a very brief research myself from my personal interest. But very recently, the number of the brand has been dramatically increased. As far as I know, maybe, I think
15 brands.
Yeah, of course, compared to Japan,
Yes.
there are thousands of the very excellent sakes. So still, there is a long way to go. But
Well, my limited knowledge is that every prefecture has their own sake.
yeah,
So, do you think that they are all, represented at the LCBO, or only a few from one region or two regions?
the variety is, as I told you, as I have just mentioned, is increasing actually. So there are many very excellent sakes you can find in LCBO recently, but Yeah, as you have just mentioned, thousands of small micro or brewers of sake you can find in various parts of Japan. So still, the introduction of sake is, relatively speaking, very limited here.
I have one more question, if I may. Is sake on the wine and spirits list of all restaurants or only Japanese restaurants?
Here in Toronto,
Only Japanese restaurants.
Some Korean restaurant.
some Korean
Oriental
restaurants,
restaurants.
Yeah, some
Asian
Chinese
restaurants.
restaurant too.
Yes, huh?
Yeah.
and
But
also
it's not everywhere.
some Western style restaurants
Mm.
recently have introduced some sake menus in their menu.
I think that's very important.
Yeah, that's true.
But another thing is the Japanese sake isn't cheap, so not
Well,
just
neither.
go
Neither is French wine or
French
Canadian
wine,
wine.
but
Nothing is
exactly. But the average bottle from France, and the wine is about $10-15. But the
No,
Japanese
no, I'm
sake.
talking about restaurants.
Okay. So one glass of wine, for example, at the restaurant is maybe about $6-7.
No. Maybe
Depends.
10 to
Okay.
20.
Depends.
10 to 20.
Okay. But different kind of restaurant you go. But a glass of sake is, even just a glass of sake is very expensive at the restaurant, right? Because bottle is expensive. It's easily, one bottle is $50-60. Just not very good brand. So,
Will Council General make some remarks about this conference?
Please.
Yes, I think culinary culture is one aspect that needs no translation. Any people from any country can immediately understand good food, good drink, and I think it's similar to instrumental music that needs no translation, and I think that's the background of the involvement of Japan Foundation in this very good idea promoted from Monk Center. I also wrote this so that those of you who understand Chinese character would understand. When you describe daily living in Chinese, you say 习以治行, if my intonation is correct. The food and drink comes on top of the daily life, and then comes clothes, the house, and outgoing, which is transformed into ishokuju in Japanese. The clothes comes first, and then the food, and then the house, and there's no walking around in Japanese daily life. But this shoku or shi does not limit itself to just food, but also to chai, which is tea, and also sake. So I think it is very typical that this endeavor started from Hong Kong and China, and going into Japanese theater. I think the importance of culinary culture is not just limited to food and drink, but also how the society is formed. If the culture is based on hunting games, then the people tends to move around, chasing around the games. That doesn't stay in one place. But when the culture is based on rice cultivation, then the people tend to stay in one place where they produce good rice, rather than going around finding games. So the society that is based on rice cultivation is characterized by living together, helping each other, and staying in one place. And I think, historically speaking, there are very sharp differences between the Asian rice cultivation culture and European style of hunting game culture. So the importance of food is not just the food itself, how to cook it, but also to extending to how you get ingredients. And I think it is an area that is extremely interesting and full of food for thought. Not the pun, but. And there you have it. So I hope you enjoy the food, some sweet that Chef Mina prepared. Thank you.
Good. Are there any other questions or comments
Oh,
or need for clarification?
sorry.
Yes, of course.
I'm asked to mention one thing. That is, this timing of the conference is March the 5th, and we have discussed the timing to coincide back to back with the food show that the Canadian CRFA, that is the Canadian Restaurant and Food Association, is hosting at Direct Energy Center on the 7th through 9th in March. And we are participating in that food show under the title of Washoku, Try Japanese Good Food. And Chef Mina is both involved in this conference and also the exhibition to take place later on at the exhibition hall.
So another question. I know that's a dinner after the conference, same day. What kind of cuisine we are expecting? Is it kaiseki料理 or Kanton 料理 or Kanshi 料理?
Chef Hiro is a specialist
in
of
the evening
sushi.
part.
Yeah.
It's not exactly the kaiseki ryori, but Chef Hiro is going to present very good sushi at the reception. And also Mr. Kimura, Chef Kimura from Ginko restaurant is presenting the hasu, very traditional style of Japanese old food as a start, followed by the main dishes cooked by the Japanese style, with the Japanese style. So it's not a kaiseki ryori, but it's going to be very representing many aspects of the Japanese food.
Say something. I noticed that very recently there is a new style, new to us, style of Japanese restaurant opening in Toronto, and that is the izakaya, where there's no cooked, where the food is all cooked. There's no sushi, and that has become very, very popular in Vancouver. There are many, and just flowing over to us.
Yeah. I think izakaya is izakaya means living sake restaurant. Through drinking together, and izakaya is a very typical with the drink. So drink is very important portion of izakaya.
Well, there is obviously the formal part of this, and that is the